Today, we're going to look at compassion and do an inquiry and some sitting with compassion for people who are suffering with anger. So often, when we think about compassion, we think about compassion for someone who's suffering with lack of food or housing or sickness or something like that. It's really easy to summon compassion for someone who's fallen on hard times. But another really prevalent form of suffering is the suffering in our mind. And we suffer with catastrophic thinking or anxious thinking that just takes over. It charges our body. It really affects our relationships, our quality of life. So, if anger is not a thing that you're interested in working with, you could easily do this with something else. But I wanted to look specifically at anger because it's so common, and our reaction to anger is usually anger. So if somebody is angry at us, then our natural response is to be angry back or to move into some kind of protective strategy: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So when we're around someone else who's angry, we have a lot of associations with that. Anger and rage, especially, can be very dangerous and very harmful. And I think there's probably no one who is free from the effects of that. And some people have a lot of experience with that. It happened early in their life and in childhood, and it really got installed in the nervous system that anger is dangerous. We could be hurt. We need to get away from it. We fight back, all of those things. So, this isn't necessarily something we would even have to do work on with someone else. We could also do that work with ourselves. So, if you've had a fight response, and one of your ways that you keep yourself safe is through being angry, going into the fight response, then maybe you could do this compassion practice for yourself. So, having said all that, notice what's going on in your body. Are you breathing in kind of an ease, or is your breath tighter? Are you holding your breath? Is it jerkier? What happens when we tighten up through the body is that our breath tightens up as well. And we often hold our breath when we feel like there's some kind of threat. So let's do a reset, and then we're going to come back into the inquiry. But let's take a moment. We titrate. Peter Levine talks a lot about titrating. We move in towards something and then we come back. We get settled again. Then we move in, but we always do it from that groundedness, from the present moment, grounded in this moment. So as you look around your room, look to see if there's any danger that you can spot with your eyes. We're just going to orient to our room for a moment. And there's such a lovely practice of going through the senses that really helps to ground us. We won't necessarily need to do that today, but if you do need to do it, then you can just go ahead. And we look around the room and say 5 things we see out loud, and then 4 things we touch. We go through the senses that way. So if you're feeling a little off kilter, you could do that. Then come back into your body. Notice your feet on the floor, or if you're lying back, notice the whole back of your body. If you're in a chair or something, notice your seat on the chair. And then let's do this thing where we look over the shoulder. So look over the shoulder. Take your time doing it. Look over one shoulder, and as you're doing it, see what's back there. Just notice everything with your eyes and see if you can do enough of a twist that you kind of get your stomach involved. So twist from the lower belly as well. And breathe. Just notice what's behind you. If there's anything that's dangerous, you would make a note of that. Very, very unlikely it is, though. And then coming back to center. And then let's do that to the other side. Going up behind us, having a look, feeling that stretch, the twist through the stomach area as well. Breathe. Really let your eyes be active. Notice what's going on behind you. And then come back into whatever position you're comfortable in. And see if it's okay to take a few deep breaths. Just breathe out, let your belly soften, and then breathe in fully. And that might feel a little bit too much, so you don't have to do that. You could always just do a smaller breath or just focus on softening your belly as you breathe out. It's good information, our experience with our breath. And then notice the energy in your body. Did any part of your body get tightened up? And we hadn't done a relaxation yet either. So you might have come in with that chronic contraction and tightness. But notice what happens right now. What's your experience right now in your body? If you put your attention into that whole space, head to toes, toes to head, what attracts your attention? And if there's something that feels kind of tight, painful, anything like that, see if you could relax it just with your mind. Just put your attention to that area and see if you could let that soften. And bring your attention up into your thought stream. Notice what's going on in your thoughts right now. And you might not have a lot going on in the head, in the thoughts, or you might. Just to notice what's your experience right now. And then bring to mind those words about compassion. It's easy to have compassion for someone who's hungry or sick, something like that. And acknowledging that having an angry mind is a form of suffering. And a lot of the work that we do around healing trauma, we're really working with acknowledging and recognizing intergenerational trauma and recognizing that when someone is hurting us, there's always a reason for that. And it has nothing to do with us, it has to do with their own trauma. And it lands on us very often. If we have someone in our life, especially if it was a parent who has anger that they haven't worked through, that they're not expressing in a safe way, then our experience is fear, of course, because it's dangerous. And it's disconnection. And sometimes we lash out too. So let's work with this in a very grounded in our body kind of a way. So keep noticing your own body. Notice your breath. Notice how you're oriented in the room, that you're safe in the environment that you're in right now. It's very important when we're working with anything that's activating in our nervous system to do these things that remind us that we're here safe right now. Otherwise, we tend to get taken back into the past or a memory, trauma stored in our body with associated memories, with sensations. So we really want to be as aware as we can of our body and of our present moment. Notice what it feels like to be in your body right now. And if at any time you're feeling like you're too activated, you could always use the breath, you could do that long exhalation. Or step back, do something to comfort yourself, give yourself a hug, your hand on your heart. We're working with this in a kind and compassionate way towards ourselves. And then bring to mind someone who reminds you of this, someone who has maybe hurt you with their angry words or with their angry actions, someone who comes to mind when you think about the suffering of someone with an angry mind. Notice what that feels like, where you feel it in your body. Is there a tightening? Was your breath affected? Notice the images. You might see somebody's face, you might hear words. What comes to mind? And as you're doing that, you could use any of the tools if it starts to become kind of overwhelming. So I'm not trying to tap on the forehead to get rid of it, but we might need to tap on the forehead to just remind ourselves that we're here in this moment, or look at it over on the wall. Really, we're just staying present. What's going on as we're bringing this to mind? Someone whose angry mind has caused us suffering. Or maybe it's our own angry mind that we're working with. And as you're bringing this to mind and working with the stabilizing and grounding in your own body, notice your response. I feel compassion for the suffering that this person is experiencing with their anger. And when we're saying something like that, it's a reverse inquiry in a way. I feel compassion for this person who is suffering with their anger. It might not feel true because we're so associated with the danger and the harm. And if it's ourselves, we might also have that inner critic. Well, you shouldn't feel angry, or you shouldn't express it that way, or there's something really bad about you that you have. Or so, if that's the case, see if you could also bring that into this moment. Be aware of it as a thought, probably with some kind of reverberation in the body. Compassion is something that we cultivate. Sometimes it arises naturally, but often we cultivate compassion. We have a sense that it would be a pathway to freedom if we could be compassionate towards ourselves, towards other people. We have an inherent sense that there's something helpful about that. So there's no expectation that you should have this heart full of love and full compassion. We're not the Buddha or Thich Nhat Hanh, or we're human beings who are working with this in the way that we're working with it. Let's stay with this. I feel compassion for people who are suffering with an angry mind. And if that feels like too much of a stretch, it might be I'm willing to cultivate compassion. I'm willing to do a practice around this for a little while and see what happens. Stay really connected with your body and your breath. Soften your shoulders, the whole of your upper back, and behind your shoulder blades. Forehead and eyebrows, mouth and jaw, down through your throat into the chest. Let your shoulders release and let go of any tension through the arms and hands. Come down through your body to your legs and feet. And go into it and then take a step back. Taking a step back here could be we notice our body, we take a few breaths, we relax, soften. And it might be that we're caught up in memories of the harm and the hurt and the terror of someone whose anger was out of control and who was raging at us. And if that's the case, we probably want to do some real grounding things, do some tapping, put their image or the words in a frame, look around the outside, do all of those tools. But we don't necessarily want to be especially looking at those memories. We're kind of taking a step back. We're saying, having an angry mind is a horrible place to be living in. And there's so much suffering in that anger. And it's a trauma response, whether it's our anger or somebody else's. It doesn't mean anything about boundaries or I need to be around that person or help that person. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just a simple recognition. When we have an angry mind, there's a lot of suffering. And can we cultivate compassion towards that person who is suffering, whether that's ourselves or someone else? You could put your hand on your heart, bring your attention into your heart center. I acknowledge the suffering that comes with an angry mind. I'm willing to cultivate compassion towards people with an angry mind, including myself. And then let those words just kind of drop a little bit to the background. Notice what's present here for you now. Deep breaths if that feels okay. Relax your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, all through your whole body. What we're looking at might have brought up a lot of associations and tightness. So we're moving in and then we're taking a step back, letting ourselves be aware again of the safety of the environment. The feet on the floor, the seat, breath flowing through your nostrils. Let the practice move to the background and just sit in that stillness. Notice your experience and your relationship to this experience. This is a really advanced practice. having compassion for someone who's angry, or having compassion for ourselves if we have an angry mind. And there's just no need at all to try to do it perfectly or to shame ourselves if we're not able to stay with it or to judge ourselves for how we're doing it. We could also have compassion for that if there's any of that going on. So a few nourishing breaths. Let go of anything like that with the out breath. Let your body soften and settle. When we're noticing our relationship with ourselves and our experience, part of what we're noticing is, are we still connected? Are we still in our body? Can we rest in the heart for a moment? Allow that warm golden glow of light at the heart center to permeate your whole system, your body, breath, mind. And set your intention, if you like, to be kind and compassionate with yourself today. You see yourself moving through your day, whatever it is that you have planned. Stopping for a moment just to kind of tune in and be kind. And then when you're ready, finish the practice and open your eyes.